Facebook is dumbfounding the experts once again. By this time in its young history, the social network was supposed to have about $1.5 billion in revenue. Pretty amazing, you might say, for a company only 6 years old. But Bloomberg has learned Facebook is likely to hit $2 billion in revenue this year, faster than Yahoo and almost as fast as Google did it. Internet analyst Lou Kerner of Wedbush Securities is with us to talk about what this means for Facebook, and for Google. We're going to have to talk about that as well. But more importantly, if you can cast your eyes forward and use this and other things as the basis for maybe a valuation of Facebook. We know Facebook trades at about $55 billion in a private market where there isn't a whole lot of liquidity. What do you think, Lou? What's Facebook worth these days?
Well, I think what you've got to do if you want to value Facebook is look out a few years and think, what can Facebook be? And if we looked at 2015 and the internet advertising market will be about $110 billion on a global basis then. And you take a look at kind of mind share today, how much time are people spending on Facebook just today? It's easy to see that they'll spend about more than 20% of all page views in 2015 are going to be on Facebook. And the history of media tells you that scale gets more than its share of spend. And so I think it's really conservative to think that Facebook will get 20% of advertising spend on the internet in 2015. And that alone would be about $22 billion. Then you can layer on top of that the fact that they're going to be an ad network. They're already starting to do some testing of ads off of Facebook because Facebook knows who your friends are. And if they can put in those ads like Virgin America, that your friend Eric likes to fly Virgin America, that gets a tremendous response rate, 60% higher awareness, 4 times the purchase intent. So we think that could be another $5 billion in revenue.
So add it all up?
And then another $5 billion in credits. I think you can get to $32 billion in revenue in 2015.
Okay, give us a multiple.
Well, you can get 40% margins on that, which would be about $13 billion. Put a 16 times multiple on that, and you can get to about a $200 billion valuation in 2015.
Pretty darn quickly. $200 billion would make it one of the biggest companies by market capitalization in the United States. But I want to play the skeptic for a moment, because page views, I know they're important, sound a whole lot to me like eyeballs. I was around in 1999. I know what happened to eToys. I know what happened to Pets.com. How confident can you be in measurements like that, which admittedly are a bit squishier than the kinds of things that you usually hear from companies?
Well, sure. Well, Eric, I mean, you're right. Nothing is constant but change. And if you look back a few years ago, we all thought that MySpace was going to be what Facebook is today. So we know that companies can falter. But certainly today, with more than 600 million members today, Facebook really appears to be well on its way to ubiquity. And when we think about Facebook, I mean, we've got a couple analogies. First, we call it the second internet, more powerful than the first because we're all connected on it. And the second one is, I think, increasingly worth thinking about it like we think of broadband, to the degree that, 100% of the people who can afford broadband and have access to broadband use broadband because your internet experience is just better. And increasingly, people are going to think about Facebook in the same way, that your internet experience broadly, not just on Facebook, but off of Facebook as well, is just better if you're a Facebook member.
I want to talk for a moment about Facebook and the companies whose lunch it's eating. $2 billion in revenue. Where is that money coming from? Is this old economy money, or is this new economy money? Companies like Yahoo, MySpace you just mentioned, Groupon, Google, LinkedIn. Is this money that they would otherwise have, or is it coming from somewhere else?
Well, I think the majority of the advertising revenue is coming from offline. What Facebook is doing, and mobile to some degree as well, is people are just accelerating the pace at which people are spending time online. And as a result, advertisers are taking money from offline, putting it into online, to the degree that it actually is helping Google today, we believe, because the more time you spend online, turns out, the more searches you do. So we're actually quite bullish on Google today as well.
We actually just heard from one of our reporters last hour, Melissa Long, talking about a survey that Forrester had done and concluded with some methodology that some TV channels have a problem with, that people are actually spending more time online on average today than they do watching television. That kind of plays to the advantages of all of those companies.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think we are starting to see really strong share increases for a lot of the major companies like Google, like Amazon, because people are online more. They're buying more things on Amazon.
I have to ask you a question. It's going to be a perpetual question. I'm probably going to ask it of you every time you're here. What's the single biggest challenge Facebook faces going forward? Where could it stumble and how?
Yeah, we think that the biggest threat that Facebook faces today today is government regulation. The bottom line is any time any company gets as big as Facebook is and takes as much share as Facebook is, governments all over the world, not just the U.S. government, but like we see, the government in France today is looking deeply at Google. This is what happens when companies start to get dominant share.
All right. It's a good reason why they've got somebody in Washington these days.
Exactly.
Lou, thanks as always. Lou Kerner of Wedbush Securities talking to us about Facebook.